Once again, we have my favorite student, good old Anne. Object starts at rest. Okay, I'll remember that. Travels 18 meters for 4 seconds while accelerating constantly. So it looks like part A wants me to find A. I would go A equals question mark. I'll make a little note. VI equals 0. D equals 18. T equals 4. Looks like I'm going to use D equals AT squared over 2. Why didn't I bother writing the VIT? Sorry? What's 0? VI is 0. If you wrote D equals VI2 as half t squared, that's fine. To get the A by itself, it looks like the D would drop down. I would times by 2, divide by t squared. That equals A. There's a t squared. Do I need to square root both sides? Only if I was getting the t by itself. Only if I needed to get rid of the squared. I don't need to get rid of the squared to get the A by itself. That's just fine. So it's going to be 2 times 18 divided by 4 squared. I think I can do that in my head. It's going to be 36 divided by 16 divided by 2 divided by 2. It's going to be 18 over 8. It's going to be 9 over 4. It's going to be, is it 2.25? Yeah. And acceleration, meters per second squared. If you got that right and the correct units, 2 out of 2. Otherwise, I would give you a half mark if I saw that equation, a half mark for the rewritten equation, half mark for the numbers, half mark for the answer. Missing units or wrong units, I'm taking a half mark off. Okay. If you're at the stage where you're able to skip this step and go straight to rewriting the equation, I would give you 1 whole mark if I saw that, even if you got the answer wrong. The real message here, Owen, is don't leave questions blank, because I think all of you can at least find the correct initial equation. Final speed of the object, so that's going to be VF equals question mark. I could use A. I could go like this, VF equals AT, and I'll come back to that because that's using an answer to find an answer. I only do that if I have to. I think I can also use D equals bracket VI plus VF times T over 2. I think I can say that 2 times D divided by T minus VI, that equals VF. Do the brackets last. Now, although since VI is 0, I could have just done that, actually. So it's going to be 2 times 18 divided by 4, 36, 9? Yeah, 9? Yeah? Yeah, 9? Yeah. I'm going to go 9.0 to 2 sig figs just to impress myself, but if you didn't, that's fine. And it's a meters per second. Now, let's suppose this was a test and I finish early. I would quickly, somewhere on my calculator, quickly just go VF equals AT. I might be tempted to just go 2.25 times 4, and the fact that I get the same answer, that tells me, you know what, I probably got A and B right. That can't be a fluke. So one of the things you can do before you hand your test in, if you want to, is often if there's a part B or a part C, you can find it in more than one way. Go back and use your earlier answer to find the answer and see if you get the same as when you tried to avoid it. Same as before, half mark, half mark, half mark for the numbers, half mark for the answer. A dog accelerates from 1.5 meters per second to 8.6 meters per second in 4.5 seconds. I'm checking my units. Find the acceleration. Okay, A equals question mark. VI equals 1.5. VF equals 8.6. T equals 4.5. I think I'm going to use VF equals VI plus AT. I think I'm going to use A equals VF minus VI all over T. Right? Right. So it's going to be 8.6 minus 4.5 all over No, minus 1.5, Mr. Dewick, all over 4.5. Can I do that one in my head? It's going to be 7.7. No, yucky. Do you get 1.58? I would take 1.6. I would take 1.58. I would not take 1.57. I would say we round off. We don't chop off, right? 1.58 units acceleration meters per second squared. Same as before, half mark for that, half mark for that, half mark for the numbers, half mark for the answer. The distance traveled. I could use d equals VIT plus a half AT squared. The only issue with that is I'd be using my answer from A to find part B. By the way, there will be times when you have to use an answer to find an answer. There's no other way. Okay. But for now, I think I would choose to use D equals VI plus VF times 2 times T. So it's going to be 1.5 plus 8.6 divided by 2 times 4.5. My 5s are getting messier and messier as I get older. There we go. 1.5 plus 8.6, close off the top, times 4.5 divided by 2. I think that's how I could type that. Mr. Dewick, I know my calculator, if I'm multiplying, it assumes the number is on top, so I know I don't have to put a big uber bracket around the whole top. Play around with your calculator and see what your calculator likes. I get 22.7, is that correct? And that's going to be meters because it's a distance. If I wanted to do a quick check, I could go D equals VI, 1.5, times T, 4.5, plus a half times A. I might, just as a quick guess for A, just put 1.5 and a bunch of 7s times T squared. Times T squared, and I could check my answer, and I got really close to the same answer as before. I didn't get bang on because I had to round off the acceleration when I typed it in, but it's close. Ooh, Riley, what 2 words did I underline in question 3? Ooh, let's pay attention to that. It wants me to find D. I guess VI is 24. VF is 0 because it says stopping. A is 3.8. Where's the mistake that I made? Can you see it? Yeah? Oh, because I'm slowing down, that's going to be a negative acceleration. Yeah. I'm going to use VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD. I'm going to use, I want the D by itself, Mr. Dewick. The VF squared would drop down like a domino, minus VI squared all over 2A. It's going to be 0 squared minus 24 squared all over 2 times negative 3.8. 0 squared minus 24 squared divided by 2 times negative 3.8. You get positive 75.8? Yeah? Does that make sense? Here's what I see. We started out going really fast, but we're slowing down, coming to a stop. Yeah, that would be a positive displacement. Now, if we kept accelerating for a longer amount of time after we stopped, if we keep accelerating, now we would start going backwards. It's possible eventually I'll end up behind from where I started from, but in this situation here, because our final speed was 0, we were just coming to a stop. This is like hitting the brakes. And 3.8, that's about a third of a G. That's a medium stop, but not a power stop. You wouldn't feel like you were getting flung you wouldn't get flung forward. You would be able to just naturally brace yourself easily. Looks like B wants me to find time. I would use VF equals VI plus AT. Box. I would use T equals VF minus VI over A, 0 minus 24, all over negative 3.8. If you missed the negative, because that's a very subtle thing to catch with slows down, you would get a negative time. Can time be negative? I saw you wrote that in your notes. That's a good point. Time is always going to be positive. So if you ever get a negative time, go back and check. You probably missed a hidden negative, a subtle negative. Either you're on a cliff and you're ending up below from where you started from, so D should be negative, or you're traveling backwards, so V should be negative, or you're slowing down or accelerating down, so A should be negative. 0 minus 24 divided by negative 3.8. You get 6.32, not 6.31. I would take 6.3 seconds. I would take 6.32 seconds. I would not take 6.31 seconds. I would take a half mark off, and then I would turn the page. Number 4, they want me to find the acceleration. Okay. I guess VI is 12 meters per second. Speeds up uniformly. That's physics code for constant acceleration, so we can handle it in physics 11. Next 6 seconds, that's time. D is 96. I guess I'm going to use D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. This time VI isn't 0, so it's not quite as pretty. In my mind, by the way, instead of a 1/2, you can also remember that's a 0.5. Those are interchangeable. I'm going to get the A by itself. I guess to do that, the D would drop down like a domino. I would minus a VIT, and then I would divide by a 0.5 T squared. That is yet another equation for acceleration. Camille, do I need to memorize that? I can derive it if you get good at it. Can you imagine if I didn't do this, what my formula sheet would look like? It would just be a catalog, right? It'd be huge. It's going to be 96 minus 12 times 6, all divided by 0.56 squared. I might be able to do this in my head. It's going to be 96 take away 72, so that's going to be 26 take away 2 is 24 divided by, it's going to be 48 over 36. Divide by, 48 over 36, Mr. Dewick, what can you divide by 2 and 2? It's going to be 24 over 18, 3 and 3. It's going to be 8 over 6. 4, is it 1.3 repeating? Yeah? Meters per second squared. I can do math in my head.
How long did it take you to learn?
Well, it wasn't something that I had to learn. I was the generation that started to grow up without a calculator. So when I can remember when I was about 10 years old, my dad brought home the first calculator we'd ever seen. And we literally sat in the living room, passing it from person to person and typing in stuff like, it just seemed wondrous to us because I knew to do that by hand with the algorithm where you drop the 0 and move over and carry one and drop the 0. I knew how much work that was. And this was the basic calculator. It had the square root button and then adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. The ones that they give away free now, that one was probably like $80 at the time, but my dad had purchased it to help do his books for his business. It was like just amazing. So a lot of these, I was still being taught a lot of multiplication tricks. And then when I was in university, I had a physics prof who was really good. He could do trig in his head, which was really impressive to me. I later learned he'd memorize certain key angles, and he always contrived his examples so that those would be the angles that would show up in very subtle ways, so he was kind of faking it. But I started to practice a few years, maybe 10, 15 years ago, see if I could do some of this again. By the way, here's what I really did. So I went 96 minus 72. No, I didn't. I went 96 minus 70 is 26 minus 2, 24. The top is 24. Dividing by a half is the same as timesing by 2. So this is 48 over 36. And that I can reduce as a fraction in my head. And once I got the 4 over 3, I'll bet even you know that 4 divided by 3 is 1.33333333. I gotta be honest, if I was doing homework and lazy, I would use VF equals VI plus AT. I would use my answer from A because it would be still sitting on my calculator staring at me, and I'd be done because the VF is by itself already. Is this homework or is this a quiz? Okay, I'm gonna try and avoid my answer from A. I think I'd use D equals VI plus VF times T over 2. Unfortunately, none of these are 0, so it's going to be times the 2 over, divide the T over. That would equal VI plus VF. I want to get the VF by itself, so I think what I would do is I would just minus the VI over. That'll work. It's going to be VF equals 2 times 96 divided by 2 minus 12. So Aiden, this one you can do in your head because in the first fraction, 2 divided by 2 cancels. This is really just 96 minus 12. So it's going to be 96 minus 10 is 86 minus 2. Is the answer 84? Or have I made a dumb mistake here? Have I copied my numbers wrong? 12? No, divide by 6, Mr. Dewick, not divide by 2. I wrote this down wrong. T is 6. So it's a little trickier. Could I do that one in my head? Probably. 2 times 96, well, 2 times 100 is 200, so 2 times 96 is going to be 192. Oh, I should have divided by 2 divided by 2. It's going to be 96 divided by 3. That I can do in my head. It's going to be 32 minus, is it 20? 20. Helps if I write the question down wrong. Minimum length of the runway, so D equals question mark. For a jet, VI is 0. It does say at rest. VF is 84. A is 3.75. Does the jet speed up or slow down? Speed up, so it's definitely positive acceleration. I think I'm going to use VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD. Although, I mean, VI is 0 in this case, so that kind of vanishes. I probably didn't need to write that. I think D is going to be VF squared all over 2A. Technically minus VI squared, but didn't make a difference. So VF is going to be 84 squared all over 2 times 3.75. Yeah, this one's got yucky numbers. I can't do it in my head. You get 940.8. I'll call it 941. If you said 940.8, I'll give you full marks. I usually go to 3 sig figs. If you said 940, take a half mark off. And then the RCMP question. Okay. Looks like they want me to find VI. VF in any car accident ever is 0. Looks like we have a D of 42.5. T equals 1.6. Yeah, that works. So it's going to be D equals VI plus VF all over 2 times T. Did that equation not very long ago. We're going to get the VI by itself. The D drops down, times by 2, divide by T, and then minus VF. That's going to be VI. It's going to be 2 times 42.5 divided by 1.6. Oh, VF is 0, so I really didn't need to bother writing that, did I? Can I do this one in my head? 42.5 times 2 is going to be 85. Not this early in the morning. You get 53.125, 53.1? Meters per second. And again, for all of these, half mark for the original equation, half mark for the rewrite, half mark for the numbers, half mark for the answer. Can you give yourself a lovely score and make sure you fill in the score, please, Aiden, out of 20? Thank you so much.